Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with veteran Berlin-based jazz drummer Jim Black. We caught up with him on April 2nd, 2020 from his base in Berlin to talk about music and the coronavirus. He talked about his latest 2020 CD called Reckon. He was raised in Seattle and has had quite a journey in music. He opened up about that and so much more. Enjoy.
Where are you located right now?
I'm in Berlin.
Wow. I just talked to someone from Berlin yesterday, and they said that the mobilization of the people there is uncanny. It's like really, really good.
Mobilization?
Well, just the fact that everybody's following the orders. Yeah, I don't know the exact word, but like everybody's response has been very efficient,
absolutely
spot on. Yeah.
The Germans have got it going on. Merkel made that rule maybe 10 days ago or so. She tightened it up by making it only 2 people at a time together on the street, which was, and the Germans have to say, I mean, there are areas where people, like anywhere else, don't care, but for the most part, they tend to follow the rules.
You know, I've heard that historically. I've had friends that, one of my best friends is a filmmaker. His name's Matt Sweetwood, and he lives out there. And he's always told me how the way the Germans are is just, there's just such a polite pallor over everything. It's just totally different from America.
That's true. I mean, there's pros and cons, of course, but I do, I mean, man, I have to say, I feel safe here. What can I say?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's getting a little bit, it's just strange here in America, man. It's really strange. I mean, not just the emptiness and everything, but just all of the mixed messages and all of the things that are going to start coming out. Everything about America is hindsight's 2020, and it's just, there's such a level of convolution, it's hard to put your finger on anything that really genuinely makes sense.
Where are you based?
I'm in Kansas City, Missouri.
Right, of course, that's right. I knew that. But that's got to be very different than New York City.
Yeah, it's, New York's kind of the hotbed right now, and, Kansas City, we've been doing good. Like, it's been like the last 2 weeks, we've been like, basically, metro-wide's pretty big in Kansas City. We've been told to, like, don't go anywhere. So everybody's been really heeding to it, unless it's, you have necessary work and that kind of thing. But I think it's, from what I can see, I get out and about quite a bit. There's a considerable crawl to our existence right now.
Yeah, as it should be.
Yeah. So, but I figured it'd be good to kind of have an oasis to talk about the music. So thanks for taking a minute out and talking about Neon Jazz. So
no problem.
So give me an idea about what you've been up to and what you're working on now. I know you're always a busy cat.
It's been dense. I mean, besides the totally grinding, I actually had to cancel. We had a great Alaska No Access tour, our 20th anniversary as a band. We had an awesome tour booked in Europe that I definitely had to cancel. I tried to cancel before Trump put in the no-fly policy. But all the venues were pretty bent on having it until Trump made that issue to close the border, so that everyone flew home, and that was a great excuse to cancel that tour, because it would have been really wrong to try to tour and play for everybody around Europe. It's unfortunate because it was a very nice tour. We were going to record a new album then. So I've been writing music for that, and, I get to continue writing music for that. So that band, nice thing to have come back. There's a bunch of other projects, a lot of new stuff with friends from Berlin, a band called Meow with Cansu Tanrikulu on voice from Turkey, Dan Peter Suman from Norway on bass, electric bass, and Liz Cossack from Portland, Maine, or Bangor, Maine, I'm not sure where she's from in Maine, on Nord Beat synthesizer. And we're going to track in June, hopefully now. We got the studio reserved, and that's a pretty full-on band dedicated to cats.
Right on. Right on.
Yeah.
So let's dig back a little bit in your life. Talk to me a little bit about your childhood, where you were born and raised, and kind of how jazz became a part of your life.
I was born in San Francisco and pretty much raised everywhere till I was about 8, I think. So I'd say I was raised in Seattle, went to high school, junior high school in Bellevue, Washington, and that's when I started playing jazz with a big band in my school, and a professional big band of all kids. And that actually introduced, that's how I met Chris Speed, Andrew D'Angelo, and people like Sun Vu, the cello player, were in my junior high with me. Brad Shepik was out in Seattle, a bunch of improvisers. And so that's kind of how I got into music, was just being around others that were curious about it. And Seattle had a conservative but strong, jazz scene. And I think when I started traveling east and meeting people my age or a little older than me, like Donnie McCaslin and Ben Porowski at Berkeley, that sort of opened my eyes to this other sound, and I got hip to people like Jeff Watts and Elvin Jones, and that definitely sealed the deal for me, finding that kind of music, that sound, and that drove me east. That's pretty much, I've been east ever since I was 18, basically.
So did you always know that being a musician was going to be your future, or did you have other dreams?
No, I'm not. No. It was. I didn't know if it would be my future. I just never made any other decision than to play music. Nothing popped up. I wanted to be a chef maybe when I was 27, 28, but I did that on my own in my house with the money I would save from touring. Other than that, no. It was always. I haven't made that many decisions in my life in terms of what to do. It's always been about where to go, like moving from Seattle to the East Coast to like to Boston to go to school, and then to New York, and eventually now to move to Berlin. Those are about the most large decisions I've ever made, but they affect everything.
So is the stage a second home to you? Are you nervous on stage? Does it feel comfortable? How do you interact with the stage?
I'm totally fine with it. I think when I was younger, or especially like when I moved to New York, you're so hyper aware of making an impression and things. And I remember playing at the Village Gate, and you see someone like Levana walk in, and you immediately would be, you start trying to impress a guy like this, which means you sound terrible because you're trying to impress the guy instead of actually listening to the people you're playing with and making music. So there were some hard lessons about what it meant to be on stage, and eventually I just made peace with that whole idea of stage fright, being nervous, or and that's basically not paying attention to the music. That's not focusing on really what you're doing. So once I learned how to focus in the moment on sound, stage, all that weirdness went away. I'm fine on stage. It's very comfortable. Especially when you realize that you could perform for others. They've thrown you across the world, you're being paid money, and you have to bring it. It doesn't feel like an ego thing, it just feels like, okay, now you have the permission to do what you do. So do it. Be you. And luckily I've been raised with musicians and artists older than me, younger than me, that only encourage making music and not being entertainers. It's entertaining by nature. You don't have to try to be an entertainer in what we do.
Talk to me a little bit about mentors in your life. Who have been really, huge mentors, that give you advice that's stuck with you today?
Wow. Oh, that's a big one. Strong one for me growing up, like especially when I moved to New York, getting to play with Tim Byrne for the first time and being in his band Bloodhound with Chris Speed, just talking with Tim and learning the business and all those things and giving me advice. That was very, very important, and he taught me a lot. Getting to play with your heroes like Steve Coleman, or getting to tour with David Lehman in a band for 10 years, like you get to ask the questions you wouldn't get to ask, you get to experience the music every night on stage, and I've been very fortunate to get to work with a lot of my heroes, and you know, you had your own fantasy about how they worked and how they did things. So to actually get to meet them and actually get to work with them, it's a different reality, but it's nonetheless inspiring. It's sort of how that works. You end up breaking myths as you go along as you get older in the scene. But I think your myth, your story you tell yourself is all important, because that's what gets you from A to B to C to eventually get to meet your mentors or to get to play with the people you'd like to play with.
What was one of the first live jazz shows you ever saw that blew your doors down, that made you think, man, that's what I want to do with my life?
Oh, well, I'm trying to go back to one of the first ones, but that's hard. I remember watching Dennis Chambers with Schofield's Loud Jazz Band in Seattle outside of the club because I wasn't old enough to get in, with my nose pressed against the glass for 2 sets. That was pretty amazing. And also I got to see Tony Williams for 5 nights at Jazz Alley when I was 18. He played a week there, and the owner of the club would leave the back door open so all the young kids could sort of stand at the top and watch the band. That was an education. But I had a lot of those experiences somehow growing up in Seattle, where there'd be these big jazz festivals where people would play, say, twice a year, and I would go and hear every band. I was open to all of it. So I don't think I could just single out one show. Of course there are many, but they mark little roadmaps across your life. Like the first time I heard Frizzell in Boston, I had no idea what that was, Bill Frizzell, and I was like, okay, whatever that is, I want to understand that. Or seeing someone like Jack DeJohnette, having no idea who that was. You know, you can imagine what it's like to, killer show in Boston, Pat Metheny, Roy Haynes, and Miroslav Vitous at Riles in 1985. Mind-blowing.
You know, it's funny you just mentioned 2 things that are pretty personal. I just moved to Lee Summit, Missouri, which is the birthplace of Pat Metheny, and the last jazz show, because I get out pretty regularly and I take my wife and we go and see shows. The last show I saw before all of the COVID-19 happened here was in about just about the second week of March. I went and saw Bill Frizzell with his new group at the Nelson Atkins Art Museum, and my wife was just like, oh my God, like, because when I go, we see a lot of, what is considered regular old jazz. I mean, there's flares to it, but Bill's a different kind of thing, and that was amazing. I mean, we were just like, wow. So,
was that with Mike Roberts?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the new band, right. I haven't heard them yet, but I'm sure it's amazing.
Well, I can't remember. Oh, no, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, Hank is one of those guys. This band I had, Human Feel, with Kurt Rosenwinkel, Chris Speed, and Andrew D'Angelo. We got to play a double bill opening for Frizzell's quartet in Boston in 1990, and those guys actually stopped eating and came and listened to us play, and that's where we met them. And I remember Hank sending us a postcard from the road after we gave him our album, how nice that was. But those guys, it's been amazing to get to play with Kermit and to get to be in a band of Hanks for a decade. Like, that's the stuff that means so much. Getting to meet and work with your mentors, like we were talking about before. But Frizzell's a special guy.
Yeah, absolutely. yeah.
He's not the last one.
Yeah. It was pretty amazing. So, why do you love jazz?
I think what I love about it is what it points to. It points to. It doesn't have an end. It doesn't have a finish. It's about the process. It's about working hard. It's about looking deeper into yourself time and time again, and extracting what's there in the present and putting it out. I mean, that's really what it represents to me, which is why it's a constant It's a constant spring. It's a constant source. And you, especially in a time like this, where now all of us are rendered mute in terms of performances, well, this is where you have to ask the question, well, what does music really mean to you? Is it a way of living? Is it profession? Or is it about the art? Is it, is it in your blood? And I have no other answer to these questions. But I encourage my younger friends. I have a band of young Berliners. They're all 22, 23, killing players from around Europe. But you see that it's not about a career. It's not about a lifestyle. It's about making art. They're looking deep for who they are through this music. So I think it's really the process of self-discovery, self-realization. And this music allows an immediate reflection of it. I guess you could stylistically say a lot of different things, but I learned this method by just observing, people like Coltrane, his career, his wants, his desires, his energy, observing Miles in a different way and following that. Bird burned out too fast, but, you look at more of the objects he made, art he did. So it means a lot of things to me. And then once you have those aesthetics in place and those directions before you, like follow these instructions, do what these people did, then it can sound like anything. You can make any kind of music, any kind of band, but it's with the intent in this way. And that's different than like just having a fun time, which I do have a fun time when I play. It's always fun, but I think that aesthetic is inherent in this music, or it's become inherent. I wasn't around in 1920, so I can't tell you. It would have been great to talk with people back then just to see how it went, how it, like from their mouth, not the historian's mouth, but from the person's mouth. So it's great to hang with older people and get to talk with them about what moves them. And they know people from then, and they can sort of transmit those stories and transmit that energy. So when you get to hear Billy Hart talk about the history of jazz, there's your lesson right there. And so it's my job to continue that energy forward with my students and my younger peeps. And of course, when you are in a COVID-19 situation, apply it to yourself. So I think it's a really good time for artists just to take stock, take some heart, and work more, practice more, you have to worry about hustling right now, so actually work on your music a bit more, especially the younger ones. Don't try to sell yourself all the time. The world's getting pretty weird with that.
Well, speaking of COVID, I wanted to ask you, once all of this ends and we get live music again, what revelations do you hope the audience gets? How do you want them to go back into this? What are your hopes for that?
Ooh. Let me answer that by just going around the circle for a second. Part of me doesn't think it's going to go back to the way it was in terms of, at least for my life, jet flying all over the world every week, transcontinental. I don't think that's going to be happening. And I'm not sure if that's so healthy and so good to do anymore. What I would like to see is maybe a focus more on what's near you, what's around you. Focus on your local scene and making that strong, because that's what fell apart in New York. Real estate prices got so high from late 90s into 2000 that it killed any ability to have any independent business whatsoever that wasn't only profit survival generated. So it killed almost all the great clubs in New York. The ones that are left are basically kept alive by tourism. That's not right. That's not right. That's not fair. And I think we need to cultivate local scenes in large quantities, and hopefully people will be hungry enough to want to go out and experience that again, because the cell phone and the internet is only so interesting. Maybe they'll find going out into public curious again, and that's what we really need. We need to cultivate a culture of curiosity. That's what we need more than ever, curious people.
That's a great answer. My final question to you is this. Everyone has their perception of who they think you are, your family, your friends, your fans, but you're living your life. Who do you think you are?
That's a good one. I ask that question throughout the day. And I'm really okay with that because it's nice. I mean, I turned 53 this year. That's kind of a chunk of time. You're not looking up anymore. You're more looking down in terms of like, you know what I mean? And that's kind of great because it asks those questions. What would you like to do with the rest of your life with the remaining time you might have? You know, what would you like to do? And that's the most interesting thing for me. I think to whoever observes me, my family or my fans or my students, they're always going to have an image of you, but I'm, and everyone's right to have that image, but I don't really think about that at all. I just think about what I would like, you know, is this still fun? And what's still good? And what's still interesting? And that's my image of me, just following my muse. I have yet to make a family. That's on the horizon, of course, and things like that, which will give me another focus. So, you know, who knows? We'll see.
Hey, man, thanks for taking a minute out in this very strange world we're living in and taking a minute out for the music and to talk about things. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks for the call, man.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Berlin, Seattle, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Jim for his time, music, and stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com. And for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, support the arts and enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.